Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh. Welcome back, people, to another episode of the show. We hope that everyone's keeping well. We hope that Maharaj is keeping everyone in high spirits. Just a quick disclaimer before we get the show actually started. I'm currently recovering from the common flu, so if I do look a bit worked out, if I do look a bit tired, excuse my face, and we'll continue on with the show because we're officially on the 6th episode of the Flex Friday show, meaning that every week we've introduced different guests on the show from different parts of the world, different parts of the globe, to help inspire you to become the best person that you could potentially be. And what's even more amazing is that Maharaja Ranjit Singh's birthday falls on the same day as the Flex Friday show, meaning that it's only right that we dedicate the entire show towards the legacy of Maharaja Ranjit Singh and the fascinating and adventurous life that he had in the history of time. And we're not finishing there. Later on the show, we'll also be reflecting back on Bhai Jagraj Singh's talk from Basics of Sikhi, and also introducing you all to Sikh Expo, an amazing online brand which has won many hearts online for sharing precious and beautiful glimpses of Sikh history, as well as releasing a coin dedicated to the legacy of Maharaja Ranjit Singh. So definitely stay tuned till the end of the show, because who knows, you might learn something new. So welcome to a new segment of the show where we'll be introducing you to different exercises and health tips to help you to become a faster, fitter and stronger person. So in this week's episode, we'll be focusing on working on our abdominal muscles, also known as your stomach muscles, or even more commonly known as just working on your abs. So over to you, Future Flexing.
Yes guys, how are we all doing? Today we're doing the abdominal challenge, so let's go. Alright, so in this week's video we'll be focusing on strengthening our core muscles, starting off with the first exercise, which focuses on the lower regions of your abdominal muscles. Keep your core tight, arms to the side and your legs straight while performing this exercise. And on to the next one, the Roman twist. Focus on buckling your hands together, bending your knees slightly and engaging your core, ensuring that you have full range of motion from one side to the other side of your body. And last but not least, we have this great exercise which focuses on your upper abs. Go to the ground on your back and your knees slightly bent. Use your arms as a guide and let your upper abs engage, and try to reach to the top half of your knee for this great simple exercise. And that is the end of the challenge. Remember to always warm up before exercising, and we will catch you guys next week.
So now we've come to the second segment of the show, where we'll be diving into the amazing adventurous life of Maharaja Ranjit Singh, talking about his early life, his background, his rise to power, Khalsa Army, and a lot more. So we'll also be having an interactive quiz to see how much you guys actually remember. And top tip, the questions will be based on the information provided in this video, so keep your eyes peeled and keep your ears open. Remember to bring your brothers and sisters along, get your whole family together, and let's try and learn something new. So over to you, Bhai Jagraj Singh.
So the Raj of Ranjit Singh, the rise of him. What's his background? He's the great grandson of Bhai Budh Singh. Bhai Budh Singh is one of the Panj Pyare alongside Baba Deep Singh, who is actually giving the Nawabi to Sardar Nawab Kapoor Singh. But Nawab Kapoor, the most, time Bhai Mani Singh this is, and this is long, right back in the history now. Bhai Mani Singh, at that time, the Mughals came up to the Sikhs and they said, look, we've tried of fighting you. How about you give us one person as a leader and you come under our system and you have your own freedom. And at that time, then the Panth chose Nawab Kapoor Singh. Nawab Kapoor Singh didn't want to be a Nawab until the Panth gives it to him. So the Panj Pyare of the Panth at that time, Baba Deep Singh was one of them, and so was Bhai Budh Singh, who his son, Bhai Nod Singh, ended up becoming the head of Sukracharya Missile, one of the missiles that was around for all that time. And then his son is Maha Singh, again the head, and then his son is Ranjit Singh. So you can see that his whole family has been involved very closely with the Sikh Panth, and he's been a sort of bred to be a leader, His dad was leader, his grandfather was, the great grandfather was leader, so he's bred to be a leader. He's blind in one eye, So they often, one of the sort of, the way that the people derogatory refer to him is Kana, yeah, because he was one-eyed. He used to say, look, God gave me one eye so I could look upon all of humanity in the same way. Because you see later on, he didn't discriminate at all. What he did is, as part of his missile growing up, he took over responsibility quite early, okay, and he fought off the Afghan invasion, and he's part of the battles in 1796, 1797 and 1798 by Shah Zaman. Won a lot of respect for that, for his kind of military prowess. So although he was blind in one eye, he wasn't this feeble kind of person. He was actually militarily very astute. You know, from very young age, he would have been involved in battle. Great horse rider as well. And then what you get is in 1799, he decides, right, you know, these other missiles are never going to get things done. I'm going to walk in, and he basically took over Lahore. And then in those 2 years, he did, and before that as well, he did a lot of kind of political maneuvering. So marrying daughters of other missile leaders, yeah, so he's got a relationship with them, or annexing them. And within this time, he basically consolidated his position as the leader of all the missiles. And then in 1801 gets crowned Maharaja of the Sikh Raj of Punjab, yeah. And he calls it Sarkar-e-Khalsa. He didn't say Ranjit Singh's Raj. He calls it the Khalsa Raj, yeah. Another big leader at that time was Fateh Singh Ahluwalia. In 1802, Ranjit Singh and Fateh Singh swapped turbans. It's a symbolic thing among Sikhs, yeah. To give your turban to somebody, it's a sign of respect, a sign of, you know, like Saropa is, yeah. And again, this was about him consolidating his status as the Raja, yeah. Because it's not happened before. There's not been one undisputed leader who is, you know, like this, unless he's somebody from a Sikh point of view. Like Ranjit Singh was not really like, he was a Sikh, but he wasn't really what you might say like a religious leader. Yeah, he was a cultural leader, right? So, but consolidating that position, he managed to do that. And by 1802, actually, same time as this is happening, is consolidating his rule, the Khalsa is also showing itself for what it is. Yeah, because basically Ranjit Singh in 1802, very interesting incident, in his kind of being crowned the king. Yeah, the exuberance of him being the Raja, he's got kind of like a number of wives, but also he decides that he falls in love with this Muslim dancing lady, yeah, Mora, and he decides, well, he's going to marry her as well. Okay. Now the Sikh strict Khalsa rehat is that a Singh can never marry a Muslim lady. Yeah. So it's very written up in all the Ratman, quite plenty of Ratnam about this, that a Sikh should never marry a Muslim. Now, whatever view it was, at that time the Sikhs were venturing into areas full of Muslims, okay, and they were rescuing people as well. So in order for the Sikhs to remain sort of strict in their sort of like relationship with the Muslims, not to start, you know, marrying their girls, converting them in. You can take many views. My view is that Maharaj didn't want to have this kind of animosity, because many people get very hot-headed when they feel that their women are being targeted. Yeah, you can see that in our Panth as well. And so the Sikhs would never do that, because it was against their dharam to ever marry a Muslim. Yeah, so basically he married Mora, and Akali Phula Singh was Jathar of the Akal Takht at the time. He was very offended by this. Okay, it was against the Maryada. So they called him to answer at the Akal Takht. And Ranjit Singh, saying, you know, well, I'm the Raja, says, I refuse to go. Why should I go? I've done nothing wrong. Yeah. Many of us nowadays might have a similar kind of attitude when we get called up. Yeah. Well, I've done nothing wrong. So he refused to go. So Akal Takht says, no one is to speak to him. Edhe muh nahi lagna. Now he is the king of Punjab. Yeah. And all the Khalsa have been giving an order, no one is to talk to Ranjit Singh. Yeah. So imagine it. And this is exactly what happens. In the morning he gets up. Yeah. The guy who's his kind of, you know, manservant doesn't talk to him. When he goes outside to go for horse riding, first thing he should do is go horse riding. The stable boys don't talk to him. Yeah, the Khalsa at that time could give a hukum to the Sikhs, and the Sikhs would listen to that hukum. So Ranjit Singh goes, I can't rule this kingdom before the Sikhs don't talk to me. Yeah. So then he did appear at the Akal Takht, yeah, with his tail between his legs, and he accepted the punishment as well. Yeah, he was asked to accept 20 lashings, I think, with a whip, and he did take his shirt off and allowed himself to be tied to a post, ready for the lashing. But then Akali Phula Singh forgave him. Said, look, he's the king, but he's accepted the power of the Khalsa, but we're not going to whip him because that would be humiliating, because he's the king of the Punjab as well. So then they forgave him, but the Khalsa was still supreme. So to bear in mind that there was this kind of like a power struggle between what was the Sikh leadership and the political leadership, but also that the respect for the Khalsa amongst the Sikh populace was still very much there. Okay, the Akal Takht, if they gave a hukam, people still listened to it.
Okay, so now it is time to test your knowledge and see how much you've been listening the whole time. So I'll get your thinking caps ready and let's get straight into question 1. Question 1. What was the name of the disease that Maharaja Ranjit Singh suffered from? I'll repeat the question. What was the name of the disease that Maharaja Ranjit Singh suffered from? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. The answer was smallpox. You can gain a bonus point if you remember that he was blind in one eye. Question 2. During the rise of the Sikh Empire, which invasions did he fight off from 1796 to 1798? I'll repeat the question for you. During the rise of the Sikh Empire, which invasions did he fight off from 1796 to 1798? The answer is the Afghan invasions. Well done to those who have got those correct. On to the third question. Question number 3. In which year did the Maharaja take over Lahore? The answer is 1799. Question number 4. In which year was Maharaja Ranjit Singh crowned to be a Maharaja? I'll repeat it one more time. In which year was Maharaja Ranjit Singh crowned to be a Maharaja? The answer is 1801. So now we've reached the final question of the pop quiz. So let's get ready for this one. Question number 5. Maharaja Ranjit Singh was punished by the Akal Takht Sahib. But at the end, what was the name of the Jathedar who forgave him? I'll repeat the question just in case. Maharaja Ranjit Singh was punished by the Akal Takht Sahib. But who was the Jathedar who forgave him at the end? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The answer was Akali Fulla Singh. Well done to you for getting all the questions right. And for those of you watching who have probably got a few questions wrong or have got all the questions wrong, don't worry. It's all about learning, and that's what Sikh is. So replay back and check out the questions again, watch the video again, and try to remember some facts. And let's see next time you might get them right. So who knows? Anyways, on to the next part of the video.
The expansion of the kingdom now. So he's making this army, he's training them, investing a lot in the Sikh forge, in the training of it. At the same time, he's expanding the kingdom. Yeah, he's not like some, I'm going to chill with my kingdom, and you know, he's actually he's managed to capture the whole of Punjab, but he's not happy with that. He wants to grab it and make it even bigger. So what you get is, then he pushed the Duranis. Duranis are those Abdalis, yeah, Ahmad Shah Abdali, he's also called Ahmad Shah Durrani. So he pushes them out of Punjab and actually invades Afghanistan. He's not content to kind of push them back to their homeland. They don't want to rule over you. So he pushes them back and expands the boundary of the Sikh Empire all the way to Peshawar, which is in the top west, and then Jammu and Kashmir. So it should be Jammu, not Jammu. And the two key generals that do this for him, okay, is the first one is Hari Singh Nalwa, okay, who is basically responsible for the Afghanistan campaign. Now, Hari Singh Nalwa was, there's loads of stories about him, by the way. Quite a big guy as well, but he was like the bogeyman for the Afghans. Yeah, you want to scare your kids, innit? And the Afghans would tell their kids, Nallu's going to come and get you. Yeah, and it was like the scariest guy ever, and he was. Now, the story about him, that once a lady, a Muslim lady, saw him and was so enamored by this guy that she said to him, you know, I want a son like you, so I want to marry you. Yeah. And he was in a conundrum now, because she'd asked him, she goes, you Sikhs never refuse anybody, so don't refuse me either. I want to have children by you so they can be as brave and strong as you. And also the Guru's hukam is you can't marry a Muslimani. So what does he do? He says, sit down. He sits in her lap. He says, I'll be your son. So you want a son like me? I'll be your son. Yeah. And so what can she do now? So he kind of gets out of it, but he still fulfills a Sikh mission of fulfilling the demands of those people. So very very high moral character. Okay. In Zorawar Singh is a general Not so famous amongst the Sikhs at the moment, but a lot of work is being done by a Sikh historian, Dr. Udoke. Yeah, talking about him. He's making a movie. He came down last year. Recently he came to Southall and showed some clips, and they've gone and retraced the history. Now Zorawar Singh, he did the attack over Kashmir and Tibet. Yeah. Now the Tibetans, right? They respect the lion and the tiger. They've got this thing for the Singh. Yeah. And they see it as holy. So if they find a flesh or a piece of, a claw from a lion, they'll take it back to their house. He was such a warrior, yeah, Zorawar Singh, that when he died in battle. The Tibetans actually chopped him up into little pieces. They took a piece back to their house. Because they said, Singh, this guy was as strong as a lion. Yeah. So that's the respect. You might say, well, it's quite gory, but really, the respect they had for Zorawar Singh was there in the fact that how they treated him in his death as well. Yeah. So a lot of our history needs to be discovered. But basically, they did some crazy missions out there at that time, and they were really, really, impressive. And Ranjit Singh was very happy with, obviously, the fact they expanded the kingdom. So now the Sikh kingdom is massive. Yeah, look at the size of that now. Punjab is probably about a fifth or maybe even a sixth of that right now, maybe even less than that, compared to what Punjab is now. Take Haryana away, take Himachal Pradesh away, take away Pakistan, Punjab, and what we've got now is so tiny compared to how big that kingdom was. Obviously, he's helped in these battles by the Khalsa. Yeah, as I'm talking about the Khalsa, I mean the Nihang Singh army, the Akali Phula Singh and the Akal Takht. They're still involved in this expansion. Yeah, and also we've got Diwan Mokham Chand, who is a Hindu general of the Khalsa army. Okay, so you've seen so far I've mentioned we had Muslim soldiers. So the Ranjit Singh's Raj, or the Sarkar-e-Khalsa, the majority of the population of the Sarkar-e-Khalsa is not actually Sikh. Yeah, Sikhs are only a very small population, because you've got all these Hindus, you've got all these Muslims. You've now got in the army Muslim regiments, Gurkha regiments, Hindu regiments. You've got generals who are Muslim, and Hindu. So it's a very eclectic army. And yet within this time, Punjab is very happy, very secular. He's a very secular ruler, and also Punjab goes through a very nice sort of period of growth. Yeah, of the arts, all kinds of things. One of the things, obviously, I say he didn't discriminate between the Sikhs and the others. Fakir Azizuddin is a foreign minister. I went to a lecture a couple of years ago by some of his descendants, yeah, and they were talking about how they remember the stories of their great grandfather talking about his time in the Sikh Raj, yeah. So the descendants of these people are still around. We've got a lot of records of this, Raj, yeah. He also, okay, so Diwan Moti Ram is co-head of the mission to the British. So he sets up a mission to the British to establish relationships with the British at like what you might call at international level at that time, yeah, because that was a nation, and the British had a nation obviously abroad, but they had a nation in India as well, the British Raj, yeah. Just to tell you what's happening at that time is the British by now had kind of taken over the East India Company, roughly, yeah, and they'd nationalized it effectively. Pretty much it was a trading company that became part of the British Kingdom, yeah, and with that they set up in the Sikh Raj. Okay, I don't know if it was at that time or it comes later, but the machinations were in place for them to set up a British Raj in India. Okay, so what he did is he negotiated a treaty with the British, where they drew lines. What was the Sikh kingdom? What was the British kingdom? Yeah, and a treaty not to invade each other, effectively, and respect each other's territorial integrity. So very forward thinking. Yeah, at that time, he didn't let them come into. He sort of delayed them enough to make them think that there was no need for them to kind of, attack him and take over his kingdom. But obviously they wanted to. It's a very fertile region, lots of money, very rich area, okay? Just to note on this, yeah, what you'll see next, the Dogras, they were Kashmiri Hindu Brahmins, okay? These people were the generals, Dhyan Singh and Gulab Singh. I know they've got the name Singh in there, but the Singh is not a exclusively Sikh surname, just in India. You see loads of Rajputs and so these two, and it's like a royal surname. These two were generals in the Sikh army. Yeah? So you see that he's not really, again, discriminating. However, was this as what the Khalsa would do? Yeah. Now you might say, well, no, the Khalsa would always be, independent. But Maharaj says in their hukum that the Sikhs should only trust power into the hands of the Khalsa. Real power. Yeah? Because somebody else could turn on you. Exactly what happened to him later on, yeah? So they say that it's okay to share opportunities and everything else, but when it comes to actually political power, then the Khalsa Raj should only trust the Khalsa. Power should remain within the hands of the Khalsa. And unfortunately with Ranjit Singh, he went to the principle to the extreme where he said, no, everybody's equal and everybody's fine to expand, and then it actually worked against him to his detriment, okay? Because he maligned the Khalsa effectively. The Khalsa leadership of, when I say the Khalsa, I mean the kind of Akal Takht, Akali Phula Singh. He wasn't really, they didn't trust him too much, he didn't really trust them too much. He didn't give them too much power, okay? He was happy to give power away to Dogras and other people, but not to the Khalsa itself, yeah? So he used them more as the soldiers, not political allies. Now, this worked against him because you'll see later on what the Dogras did. They were the main betrayers of the Sikh Raj, okay? Also, just a point for those people that like their arts and stuff, yeah? Under Ranjit Singh, then the arts in Punjab really, flourish. Okay, a lot of the arts we see nowadays, Fulkari, all these beautiful styles, that all flourished under Ranjit Singh, calligraphy, yeah? And again, a very stable period of time, religion and arts were sponsored. There was no death penalty, by the way, in the Sikh Raj. Something to note, okay, when we talk about rules of how a government should govern. Sikhs never had a death penalty, okay? He also kept in check a lot of the fanatical imams, okay? So they were denied patronage, and the people that were more, kind of peace-loving, kind of our type of Muslims, you might say, sounds rude, but yeah, it's the fact. They were sponsored. Cow slaughter was banned, yeah, because he's you don't want to offend anybody either, okay? Make it kind of like a secular Raj. He put gold on the Harmandir Sahib and also built up Hazur Sahib, okay? Now Hazur Sahib, Maharaj Guru Gobind Singh Ji had said that no one should build a big monument here to me. Anybody who does so, their whole family will be ruined. So if you see what happens afterwards, Ranjit Singh's whole kind of parivar goes, but it's Maharaj said that don't make a monument to me, and yet he did so, yeah? So you can see, the bachans do come true. When Guru Sahib says something, it inevitably has to come true, yeah? He also, the gold on the Harmandir Sahib obviously came from him. So it wasn't gold. So now we call it the Golden Temple, but it should be called Harmandir Sahib because the golden part isn't what the Guru's put on it. It was white before, yeah? And later on, he also put gold on another famous Hindu mandir as well. The doors at Harmandir Sahib, the big wooden doors at Darshan Deori. As you go into Harmandir Sahib, they kind of go to that doorway. That was again something that he made. He had these beautiful doors, and a similar set were given to a Hindu mandir as well. Yeah, so he really wasn't like saying, okay, we've got to make sure that our Gurdwara are perfect. He was very secular in that way. Yeah, but like I said at the bottom, his relationship with the Nihangs and the Khalsa was not that great. They didn't recognize him as a Khalsa leader. They saw him as a political leader. Yeah, and they only really looked at the Akal Takht. But also, although he needed the Khalsa, okay, to fight all his battles, he also was a bit scared of them. When they would do the march past, when you have a general and you see a parade, yeah, you have all your troops march past. When the Nihang Sikhs would come past in their contingent, they would often swear at him. Yeah, so you can imagine that somebody's walking past and they go like that to see if he would jump or something, and they would take the mick out of him quite a bit. And he used to have a bodyguard, yeah, in front of him when the Nihang Sikhs walked past, just in case he decides to throw something at his head or something, just to make him realize who he was and who they were. They still saw themselves as the rulers of Punjab, and that he was just kind of, there for now, but they're the rightful owners.
So that was a short glimpse of the adventurous life of Maharaja Ranjit Singh. And I want to give a quick shout out to my brothers and sisters from Basia Sikhi. We have launched a Vaheguru course on YouTube. So if you want to check out more videos, check it out on YouTube, check out Basia Sikhi. Now without any more further ado, I want to introduce you all to an amazing brand by the name of Sikh Expo, who have captured many hearts around the world for sharing precious moments and beautiful glimpses of Sikh history, as well as launching a fascinating coin dedicated to the legacy of Maharaja Ranjit Singh. So we'll be checking out right now. And that is the end of the episode. Thank you for watching. And as always, remember to train hard, work hard, and top tip, always remember to stretch before exercising. If any mistakes have been made, please do forgive us. We hope that you have learned something new, something insightful, and something that you can take away to your everyday life and become a better person each and every single day. So I'm your host of The Most. I'll go by the name of Flexing. And if you want to check out more episodes, just search for Seek Channel on YouTube. Subscribe to them, subscribe to us, because we're a whole family here, and check out the previous episodes. And we'll catch you guys next week, 9:30 PM every Friday, Flex Friday. So we see you guys till next week. Vaheguru Ji ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji ki Fateh.